Namaste and welcome back to the Loving Consciously podcast. Today is a very special day for so many reasons. We are recording and releasing this on the 888 portal here on August 8th today. We have our last guest interview of season one, year one of this show. And it's our first musician and artist, and we are going to be both talking and listening to his art and him play his music. So excited to welcome Grant, also known as Prezence in the music scene. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so we came across you into our magical sphere at Music and Sky, which we've talked about a few times on the show. It was an event put on by Alpha Vedic, a truth, love, freedom kind of music festival meet sovereignty event, I guess if you could try and describe it. And when you came on stage, we both had a reaction that I can count on one hand how many times I've ever had, because when someone is resonating at a frequency of truth and love and turning that into art, it's incredibly powerful. And you nailed that. And so, before we get into our questions and all the magical things we're going to talk about, I would love if you could introduce who you are, how you got to this place, and maybe a little bit about that artistic and musical journey for you.
Thanks so much. Well, yeah, I really appreciate you guys having me on. It was really nice to meet both of you at Music and Sky. And I appreciate the kind words as well. I started playing music when I was really young. My parents decided that they wanted to make it like a part of my education, so they forced me, whether or not whether or not that's moral or right is another, topic for another discussion in the whole peaceful parenting and conscious parenting thing, but they did actually require me to take piano lessons from the time that I was about 5 years old through the end of my high school journey. And I did classical piano, and I got really good at all the crazy classical piano kind of stuff. And that gave me a really good foundation for learning other types of music. And then when I was a little bit older, I started wanting to rebel against the classical music and being forced to play classical piano. So I started playing in punk rock bands with my friends and playing in the garage and stuff like that. And that actually led to some very cool opportunities. Got to record with like Green Day's producers in Hollywood and had the opportunity to kind of do that whole thing. And then, time went on and schooling and education kind of took the front seat, and I sort of got disconnected from my passions a little bit. And recently, in about 2020, I started just seeing the way everything was going with the lockdowns and the mind control, the heavy amounts of psyops that were being perpetrated on people. And I felt like I had this gift of music, but I wasn't really using it to the benefit of humanity or really using it to spread any kind of message. I was just sort of sitting there consuming a lot of content, but not really creating anything of value for the world. I was listening to a lot of people talking about truth and freedom, and someone who really inspired me a lot is Mark Passio. You guys might be familiar with him, but he was the one who really got me off my ass and said that if you're not actually hopefully I can. Am I allowed to swear on here? I do tend to swear a little bit. I can censor myself if required. I just wanted to check that before we go any further.
You're all good.
Um,
You're good.
but he was the one who sort of got me up and moving. And yeah, he just said that if you're aware of what's going on and you're not actually doing anything about it, like if you're aware of the problems but you're not actually getting active in some way to make the world a better place, then you're kind of part of the problem, and in some ways worse than the people who are just completely ignorant to what's going on. So yeah, I'm grateful to the two of you for getting active and spreading your message and spreading your truth and using your voices to get the message of truth out there. And that's kind of what inspired me to start making this freedom music. So
Thank you so much for sharing all that. I think it's really funny, we can talk about things from a million angles, like you were saying about conscious parenting and peaceful parenting, but it sounds like them forcing you into music, created really young this skill that you've carried forward. And I love so much that as you went on your, we'll say, consciousness journey, that's a word we use here, but awakening journey, if you will, you started to flip and use that. And what you said really resonated because we heard something really similar before we started this podcast, similar but different. It said, when you are aware of truth and you don't share it with other people, it no longer is a blessing, it becomes a curse. Like something about like universal law of like you have that information and you're withholding it, and so it no longer blesses you, it curses you. So I love that you brought that up. And
Exactly.
really, before we dig in, because we have so many things we want to talk to you about, we ask all of our guests on this show, what does loving consciously look like in your life? And I do believe, correct me if I'm wrong, are you in a conscious partnership?
Yes. I'm in
Okay.
a partnership. I'm doing my best to make it a conscious partnership. I don't know exactly what that means. Maybe you guys can educate me on that. But yeah,
We all
definitely.
are. We're all out here figuring it out. A conscious
Yeah,
partnership is just two people who are in a relationship consciously, i.e., I didn't enter this because you're attractive or I'm bored or my ego wanted to. I'm here to grow and we're growing together, whatever that looks like for those people.
definitely. That's a great definition. And yeah, I would say to expand that definition of loving consciously to the music thing, I think that, or for creativity in general, I think that creating, showing up to create isn't always easy. It's something that requires discipline and it requires work, especially when we're sharing ideas that might not be the popular opinions. They might be things that are unpopular opinions, but nonetheless opinions that people need to hear. So I think loving consciously is making that conscious effort to show up every day and in some way contribute to the creation that results in the unfoldment of consciousness for humans and spreading the message of truth and freedom and love and all the things that we're here to spread.
That's a really beautiful answer. We hear a lot of answers to that question, and I love that you brought it to service, right? Like serving others, serving those who are not quite where we are yet. And it's a beautiful segue into the first question we wanted to ask you, which is I know, well, I kind of know. I guess I don't know at your level, but I know conceptually being in this space, we'll call it the truther space, you can call it whatever you want, words are not what matter, is difficult, right? Like you are against the common paradigms, you're against the common grain. We face it in our families, our circles, social media, the internet. I imagine, and I'd love to hear from your perspective, that doing that in the music industry is probably, compounded because it's an industry that is quite deeply run by that patterning and programming and all of those things. And so how does that work for you? How does that manifest? Like how do you be a conscious music artist?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think that it's definitely something that I get asked a lot and it's definitely something that I've had to think about because I actually was blessed to go to USC, University of Southern California, and study music industry there. And I studied music industry and production, and I was surrounded by people who worked in the industry at a high level, and I was it was a blessing to see what that's all about. And when I finished that education, I pretty much just took a hard fork and just got out of Los Angeles and realized that that wasn't my path and that I was going to figure out how to make music that was authentic to myself and I didn't really feel the need to try to be in the so-called music industry as it's called because as you guys both know and as you alluded to Hollywood and the music industry are both completely controlled by certain forces that if you look at some of the music for example I don't know if you're familiar with Ice Spice recently came Ice Spice recently came across my desk, and I was like, I don't know who this is. Someone mentioned it. I'm gonna do my best not to be negative here, but the the art that's being pushed on the masses is extremely degenerate. It's extremely vile and vulgar and sexual in an extremely perverted, inverted way, and it's all about materialism and money and it's basically just all of the most evil values kind of wrapped up into this music that feels very good to listen to in a way, like it's catchy, but they use that catchiness to program the subconscious mind to essentially attract a reality that's what the dark occultists want and not what we as light occultists or occultists of the light want to create. And so, yeah, that was kind of the thing that made me want to just leave Los Angeles entirely and not engage with that at all. And I'm here in Sedona now making music and just kind of when I make music, I look out my window and I see the red rocks and I see storms and I see nature and that's what inspires me to create. And honestly, I don't really care whether it reaches a million people, millions of people or not, or if it's you know, I'm sort of trying to detach from that whole fame and success and all the things that we're programmed as artists to want, and instead just give it up to God and just be like, I'm here to serve the truth first and foremost through my art, and I'm going to show up every day and do my best to do that. And if God wants it to reach people, then it will. And that's pretty much all there is to it. And I don't think my music is, reaching millions of people. Sometimes I struggle to get a few hundred views, but at the same time, the people who do engage with it, I can tell that it's making a real difference in their lives, and that's what matters to me. And also just it's for my own fulfillment as well. Like if I wasn't doing this, I would feel lost and I would, not know what to do with my life. So this is my own medicine for myself, and it's also a blessing that it can be medicine for other people at the same time. And whether or not it's going to reach millions of people and, create some massive movement or something like that, that's up to God at this point for me. So I've kind of detached from that.
That's a really, really beautiful perspective. And I just want to reflect back and share in this space with you because we've had a really similar experience with this podcast, like not as many people as I think our egos or our minds would like to see. Like we want millions of people to listen about love and consciousness but you know what? I've personally had a couple of dozen people reach out to me and tell me the show's changed their life. And something I would offer here, for anyone in this space, in any form of spirituality, consciousness, love, truth, space is one person, right? Making an impact on that one person who now has more light is far more impactful than some people say thousands, some people say a million, who knows what the number is, but we know the light is more powerful. And so I just wanted to, offer that because we exist in that space as well. Two things that came up while you were talking. The two words that were popping in my head was integrity, which I love that song. I kind of am playing that on repeat because that was one of those songs you played at Music and Sky where I was like, oh, that's that like resonance, that's that frequency of someone who's not just talking about living in integrity, but is living in integrity. To walk away from LA and the Hollywood scene and, like you just said, come into a space of creating music that is against the paradigm and not as popular, that takes a high level of integrity. So, thank you for that art. First of all, that song is beautiful and for living in alignment with that integrity.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's a beautiful reflection. Thank you.
Yeah, it takes great courage to walk away from something like that, to be exposed to that industry and to have gifts and to have talents and to say, no, I'm going to use this for the light. I'm going to use this for my purpose rather than to feed this machine and this, the powers that be in this current state of consciousness of the world. And it's interesting, I see this a lot with creatives, myself included, of going through this journey and working kind of in the matrix, and realizing that what we've been given as a gift from God, source, whatever resonates for you, to be birthed into this world is so unique. Each one of us has it. And so to see you walking in your passion and to bring this beautiful art to the table is amazing to witness, and it's needed at this time. And so whether it's one person, whether it's 100 people, though that impact that you have then ripples out to everybody that they interact with. And so it's this weaving web of conscious artists, conscious design, conscious food, everybody bringing that aspect of the divine into the work that they do with the discipline and the integrity that you have that's going to create this new world. So thank you so much for bringing it in. And I did want to ask you too, you talked a bit about kind of the powers that be in Hollywood that are really using this music to program and to create this frequency of fear and lack and all of these experiences that the ego feeds off of. How have you noticed the difference in kind of intake and consumption of music in terms of when you're experiencing what's public in the media versus what you've noticed and how people respond from what you create?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, there's a lot of threads that we could pull on there, but I appreciate the reflections and also reflecting back to you. thanks for the work that you're doing as well to spread consciousness. Yeah, I just think that music is such a powerful tool, and art in general is such a powerful tool because it has the ability to go beyond the boundaries of language in a lot of ways. The spoken language that we're speaking here is kind of like it's kind of like low level shit in my opinion compared to like what we have the capacity to create as artists. It's a lot higher level. It's a lot more multidimensional, and it can kind of break past the barriers of the things that bind and hold people back, and the different kind of religious belief systems and things like that. Getting into what you were saying a moment ago about the integrity, I think that's the biggest thing. One of the biggest things that I feel like I'm doing my best to embody and spread, because I was listening to a podcast yesterday on a drive with Mark Passio. He was on the Free Thought Project podcast, which is another great podcast, and he was just talking about how the quintessential crux of the issue that we face as a civilization is the understanding of morality. It's just the understanding of what human rights are and what morals are. And if you ask the majority of people, they wouldn't be able to define what a right is. If you ask the average person, even people who are pro human rights and want us to be free and want to live in a loving, peaceful world, they wouldn't be able to define what a right is. And he defines it as a right is an action that does not cause harm or initiate harm against another sentient being. And in my opinion, that is the crux of the issue. And he also talks about how if we want to make the world a better place, we can come up with all of these solutions like new technologies and blockchain and art and music and all of these amazing things. But if we don't understand the core issue of morality, and we don't understand that we have to be willing to say no to things that are immoral and say no to doing an immoral behavior for a paycheck, that is the crux of the issue. We have to be able to first withdraw our consciousness from doing things that are causing harm in the world. And so many people in the world are choosing to initiate harm for a paycheck, right? Through, there's so many different ways that can manifest. But I think that in terms of creating music that does not initiate harm and is true to myself, it's just it's a decision that had to be made. Like, I'm not going to serve any kind of agenda other than what's true for me and what's true to my core. And I think that the vast majority of artists, especially ones who are signed to major labels, their message is completely controlled by these mega corporations and governments who seek to control the masses through a message and a frequency of fear and guilt and shame and all these low vibrational emotions. And so I just have mad respect for anyone out there who is choosing to align themselves, choosing to realign with the divine. Maybe that's a song I could play here for you guys, but choosing to just be aligned to our heart and choose to spread a message of authenticity and integrity, and not because somebody else wants to hear it or because our boss said we have to do this or whatever, but because that's the right thing to do. And that's what's the moral thing to do, is to, spread a message of, I will not initiate harm against other sentients. I will not initiate harm against other peaceful people. So I think that's really the crux of the issue, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. Thank you for that. That was really powerful. And what you essentially were touching on is something we talk about a lot on this show is at its core, we have a consciousness problem, right? I've never heard it described in terms of morality, but that is the same thing, right? Just said a different way. And it's about aligning yourself back, to what is conscious, what is moral, what is ethical, what is in line with truth and love. And, it's just really encouraging to see, so many people doing that. And I would offer to listeners here, this is something, and I would love to hear your song after this. Something I want to offer is, when we're talking about music specifically, obviously you are a musician, a beautiful musician. We made the decision, I don't even know when it happened. It was at least a year ago, maybe going on 2 years. We do not consume non-conscious music or art for that matter, TV, book, anything, at all. Like, we do not turn the radio on. We do not listen to anything in our Spotify playlist that is not of that caliber. We just won't expose ourselves to it. And it's so much so when I'm out in public now and I hear it in the grocery store, I'm like, ugh, like it's like physically painful to my ears because sometimes it's so horrifically, wait, the words you said were perfect, vile, vulgar, etc.
It's an
Obviously,
oppressive frequency.
yeah. And I'm definitely getting to that point, but obviously, that was a journey for us. It was little by little. It was, and sometimes an old catchy song that was a big part of my unconscious days comes on and I'm like bobbing my head and I'm like, "No, wait, stop it." Like that's not what we consume today. And so for our listeners, being mindful and being aware that what you feed is what grows. And that comes back to that morality and it comes back to that living in alignment of, it's really easy to justify like, well, I'm conscious and I know this music is trash is the word that's coming up. Like that's how I feel personally. It's just my opinion. Don't come at me in the comments, but I know this isn't conscious music, I guess is the more loving way to say that. And, it's catchy and I enjoy it or whatever it may be. I have this, sentimental attachment to it. And so I'm going to keep listening to it. And I would just invite a moment for reflection of, if we could tie this into a really literal thing, the actual frequency of what you're consuming, whether you are conscious or not, is affecting your subconscious and you're feeding it. You're feeding that in the collective, you're feeding that energy, you're telling the world, the matrix, your subconscious, whatever you believe in, that you want more of this thing, right? And so it's back to that morality of, can we as sovereign, loving, conscious beings stop supporting and choosing that? And so I'd love to hear your song, and either before or after, whatever you feel is most appropriate. I really want to touch on the like actual mechanics of what they're doing to the frequencies. I know very little about it, but I know, tuning and frequencies, and it's kind of been altered to quite literally throw us out of tune, right? Like being energetic beings. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that and definitely hear your song.
Yeah, a lot of good points there, definitely. And I think that's a really great choice to make when you just decide. And it's not that all mainstream music is necessarily bad, right? It's not like we need to put this blanket statement that all, mainstream music is this type of thing. It's just we do need to be discerning about what music is doing to our psyche and our subconscious. And I think that, are y'all familiar with, Dr. Joe Dispenza and Bruce Lipton and people like that who are they're masters of the subconscious realm. And
Mm-hmm.
they teach how, for the people who maybe aren't familiar with their work, they teach how in order to actually change our behavior and change the world around us, we have to have a clear intention. We have to have that mental aspect of it, of visualizing what we want, but then we also have to have the emotional aspect of that positive or whatever that emotion is that binds to that intention and then creates that change. Because when the heart and the mind are aligned together, it creates that change.
Mind
And
Heart
so that's what,
Coherence. Big
yeah,
plug
the
here
heart.
for Joe Dispenza's Rewired series. I know it's on Gaia. I
Oh,
think
I
you
haven't
can get
seen
it
that.
somewhere else. Oh, it is so good. He did a series where he talks about literally rewiring your brain and how, just like you were saying, it's all about the alignment of the mind and the heart and the subconscious and everything. So
Right. And so music is such a powerful tool to do that. And music goes straight into the subconscious because it stirs up emotions within us. So, like, if the music is stirring up positive emotions of unity or peace or love or whatever, that's great. It doesn't necessarily, like, the lyrics don't necessarily have to be quote unquote conscious lyrics. It's just what we have to be discerning about what the emotional charge of the music is, especially when there are lyrics, because then when there are the lyrics, then the lyrics create that mental aspect, the music creates that emotional aspect, and then together that's what reprograms the consciousness to, create certain outcomes. And in that sense, I think that songs are very much like prayers, because a true prayer, as Joe Dispenza says, is where we have that intention and that emotion coming together to create that heart coherence. So I think songs have the capability to do that. And when we listen to these dark, negative songs, they create negative prayers. They create prayers for what we don't want to have happen. And when we listen to positive music, it creates prayers for what we do want to have happen. So,
we'd love to hear one of your prayers right now.
so
Please
let's
take it
let's let's
away.
do a song. This one's Realign.
Choosing to realign ourselves
With the divine, yeah. That's why we are choosing to realign ourselves with the divine, yeah. Mind control, yeah. know that my heart center is truly masterful, yeah, when I choose to realign. I'm tired of being silenced by the fear of ridicule. It's time to rise up like a lion and to speak the truth. Because to know and not to act is not to know or care. Gotta do my part in declaring awareness into the air, unto the ether. For those who know it's time to become leaders, keepers and speakers and teachers of sacred knowledge to all who are still sleeping, upgrading them consciousness, suffocating them in lawlessness. Truth and love are synonymous, situations ominous, but I won't remain anonymous. No, you ain't never gonna mute this throat chakra, fully opening the words flowing like a lava mine. It gonna be bound by dogma, but we can't evade natural law or karma. Typogram all the propaganda, raise our brain waves in the gamma. Wage slaves breaking cages, disengaging the limitations. Cubicles of the new plantation. Are you on the same page? Do you understand? Ego out of the way, spirit engage. Mind controlled slaves be feeling enraged. Ego can't handle the truth of vibrations, but I got no patience for their frustration, and I'm not given to the temptation. We must unlock government regulation. Conscious life is the real education. Anybody who subscribes to an institutionalized belief system is under mind control, yes. Anybody who subscribes to an institutionalized belief system is under mind control, yeah. When I choose to realign to my inner guidance, I know that my heart center is truly masterful, yeah. When I choose to realign, choose to realign. Yo, do you deserve to be put into an institution? Let me get in here and dispel a major illusion. Them chief religion is binding, grinding their minds to a halt. When they default to politics, got play like a fiddle. Here's a little riddle, you think you got swindled? Paying them taxes, getting crippled, your bank account dwindled. Don't like it, then they coming at you with the missiles. Just because a little bit is scribbled on a piece of paper, underneath a little bit of Satanism, symbolism, underneath a little bit of communism, euphemism, sound legit. To some dead, that's criminal sign. Your initials on the dotted line and hand us your rights. No, your bitch asses won't put up a fight. And we got the guns and we coming for yours. We will force you into funding our wars. Take up the first due process second. Don't ask no questions if you get threatened. We lock you in a cage. Lock you in a cage. That's why we're choosing to realign ourselves with the divine. Here on the Loving Consciously podcast, we are realign ourselves with the divine. Yeah. Cause anybody who subscribes to an institutionalized belief system is under mind control, yeah. Anybody who subscribes to an institutionalized belief system is under mind control, yeah. When I choose to realign to my inner guidance, I know that my heart center is truly masterful, yeah. When I choose to realign, choose to realign. Choosing to realign ourselves with the, oh yes, we choosing to realign ourselves, oh yeah, we choosing to realign ourselves with the, oh with the divine, with the divine, with the divine. That's why we are choosing to realign ourselves with the, oh yes, we choosing to realign ourselves, oh yeah, we choosing to align our, oh with the divine.
And so it is.
So it is. So we choose to realign ourselves with the divine. That one's called Realign. Maybe should we do a couple more, or keep the conversation flowing, and then whatever you guys want.
I'd love to dive into that song a little bit, if you're open to it, because, you know, something that struck me when we first heard you at Music in Sky was not only is your music resonating on the frequency of truth, but you have been able to compact so much information into such a small amount of time in such a masterful way, with beauty and this frequency of just like, you know, sitting here, I feel empowered just having listened to that song, right? And I've already listened to it many times before, but every single time it's that same frequency, and it speaks to what you were saying before you played into, you know, these frequencies and these energies that are carried through music, because they are like prayers. And so being consciously aware of what we are consuming is so important, whether it's food, whether it's music, whether it's, you know, videos, movies, what we consume all affects our consciousness. It's not just a physical consumption thing, it's all aspects of what we're consuming, from religion to politics to everything. And so you've been able to tie all of that into this masterful artwork. And yeah, I mean, I'm kind of without words because from a creative perspective, it's phenomenal. From a dancing perspective, I'm a dancer as well. It
Mm-hmm.
it really
I can't not
I can't not
move.
move because it aligns with the frequency of truth. It aligns with the divine. And music like that makes you move, not from a control perspective, but because it realigns your energetic field to the divine, as you're saying in this music. And so I'd love for you to dive into a little bit more on how this piece came to you and what were the major messages that you'd like to get across.
Woo! Thank you for that reflection. That was beautiful. I
It
really
made me
appreciate
cry.
that. Yeah, beautiful reflection. And I really appreciate that, the kind words. And this piece came several years ago. And honestly, there's a lot of polarity in this one. The line choosing to realign ourselves with the divine, it's funny because that was actually kind of tacked on at the very end, like when I'd finished writing everything else, and that got tacked on because I felt like the song was, it had too much of a negative charge overall because of some of the things that influenced the lyrics. For example, let's see, I have the lyrics right here so that I can reference them because there's, like you said, there's a lot in there, and sometimes like having it in memory, it just kind of flows from front to back, but it's hard to like go into my memory and like pick out a certain line. Um, but I guess the part of the hook, anybody who subscribes to an institutionalized belief system is under mind control. That's something that I got from Mark Passio. He said it with like, he was like, anybody who subscribes to an institutionalized belief system is under mind control. And the reason he was saying that is because he was referencing all of the institutions that control thought and control people's minds, from religion to politics, many of the things that you mentioned, religion, politics, all really forms of religion. The media is a form of religion. Money is a form of religion. Religion being something that kind of holds the mind back from its full potential. Actually, the Latin root religare actually means to bind or to hold back. The word religion itself literally means to bind or to hold back. And so institutionalized belief system is just a way of kind of like encompassing all those religions. And so again, there was a lot of parts of this song, like, for example, here's a little riddle, you think you got swindled, paying them taxes, getting crippled, your bank account dwindled, don't like it, then we're coming at you with the missiles. That's, kind of alluding to the religion of government and authority, and you have to pay your taxes, and if you don't, there's a threat of violence that's going to come and be levied against you if you don't pay your taxes. These kind of things. Or sign your initials on the dotted line, hand us your rights, no, your bitch asses won't put up a fight, we have the guns and we're coming for yours, we will force you into funding our wars. Getting into some of the evil institutional belief systems that continue to this day to create wars, as we're seeing right now in Gaza, where there's, tens of thousands of children being murdered at the hands of criminal cabals, which people are, literally like using all of their might, and they're using religious fervor to uphold these institutions when they're literally murdering children. And so there's a lot of kind of what people could perceive as negativity in these lyrics, but the whole point of it is to see all of that polarity, and then choose to realign with our hearts and what we know is the right thing to do, if that makes sense. And that's how I came up with that final line, which ended up being like the main part of the hook, choosing to realign ourselves with the divine. And it's something that everybody can sing along to, and it's something that, it's very catchy that people can attach onto that. And then the more nuance of the lyrics is really, it's pretty tough. It's pretty, there's some brutal, there's some brutal truths in there. You know, I'm not going to lie. It's some brutal stuff. Deprogramming the propaganda, wage slaves breaking cages, disengaging their limitations. Cubicles are the new plantations, right? And
Mm.
just talking about different forms of human slavery. And it all comes back to the slavery is rooted in institutionalized belief systems and the belief in authority, the belief in these institutions, which actually are completely irrelevant when we're tuned in with our heart, right? So
Mm.
that's kind of, I guess that's a little synopsis of how that song came to be.
Thank you for sharing all of that, Grant. I'm getting emotional over here because of a lot of reasons, to be honest. Your art was beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. You know, especially for our listeners here, this is a really great time to plug love. And I love that you brought it back to the
Yeah.
heart because it is like this journey is not for the faint of heart. It's tough waking up to what the world is, and there's this incredible hope and promise that when you become conscious of what's going on and of all of these brutal truths, as you said, which thank you for the truth nugget about religion. We love etymology. Like just go look up some of these words, y'all. It'll blow your mind. But as you wake up to these things, it is a really challenging process. And then you get to rebuild and realign with the divine, and you realize that it's all love and it's all perfect because this is just this, dualistic polarity world that we're experiencing, but this isn't truth, right? This is what we are experiencing right now, but love is truth. And when you can realign and understand from that perspective that everything that's happening right now is perfect and necessary for humanity's growth and evolution. It's like the infection analogy everyone uses all the time. Like we've got to purge and clean out all the infected pus and gunk so that we can heal the wound. And it's what's on the other side of that we talk a lot about on this show, and we get there, we believe, through love. Like love is the answer. The heart is the answer, and realigning is that answer. And so I love so much how and it finally clicked. I was like, what is like that thing? It's that you can deliver such brutal truths because they are brutal. They're so brutal to me. And I've been literally consuming this for 3 years, almost every day. These brutal truths and this light and this hope of love and alignment with the divine and marrying those in a way that is just beautiful. It's just beautiful. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the word institutionalized, right? And it was interesting when I first heard the song, I actually thought you were saying institutional lies.
It is. It's a
And
it's a double
and
entendre.
it is,
Exactly.
right?
You got it.
And
You got it.
yep, yep, yep. And so I like there's that deep truth of understanding that everything that has been hidden and told to us and all these lies that are perpetuating in our society have to come out. And that's why people like you play such a critical role is delivering these truths and then reminding people not to sit in them, not to sit in that darkness, but to realign with love, with what is true. Because when we do that, we heal that frequency. We heal those lies. It is us who are conscious, bringing the light of awareness of truth and love to these dark truths that helps elevate the consciousness of this planet and heal that aspect. Because if it's happening out there, it's also happening somewhere within ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? We have to see that ability for us to lean into the same darkness, into the same lies that are being spewed out throughout the society and say, I'm going to love and accept that part of myself. I'm going to love and accept that my brothers and my sisters are doing the same thing. And we are going to focus on building a new world founded on love rather than focusing our energy and attention on what is currently existing. Awareness and then build something new.
Mm,
Yep. Exit and build. Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this after our Music and Sky episode. We did an episode about that experience, and we talked a lot about how in again, I don't like labels and words, but we'll say the truther community or the consciousness community, the spiritual community, they kind of cross. They're kind of different but the same. We see a lot of like, we need to fight the system and we need to do this and we need to tear that down. And it's like what he was just saying of what you feed is what you grow. And it's like good to be aware. Yes, be aware. Yes, exit. Don't feed it. Yes, empower others. But it's the energetics of like, are we fighting something that is negative, or are we loving and not judging it and then giving our energy to like building something new? So yeah, I love that so much. I would really love to hear another song. I don't know about you. Which one are you gonna play?
Yes, I love that too. And everything that you were saying, I really resonate with that. And just how, you know, all of these things are happening because they're a mirror. Like consciousness is always a mirror. So it's always reflecting back to us things that I'll give a good example. Like I used to always when I was in that super kind of like fighting against the system vibe, I was super in that vibe for many years, and I would always be having interactions with cops, constantly getting pulled over all the time. Like they were always pulling me over, they were always harassing me and trying to extort me and steal my money and all this kind of stuff. And then after many years, I kind of realized that it was my own, that was reflecting back to me the part of myself that's also an authoritarian, and wants to control other people, right? And so the only way that we can heal the world is by seeing what we don't like out there, changing it in here, and then by doing that, people say the eyes are like projectors for what's inside the soul or something like that, or eyes are projectors for what's in the consciousness or in the head. So as soon as I started to focus on eliminating the authoritarian within myself, then I stopped having these interactions with other authoritarians outside of myself altogether. So that's a good segue into this next song that I'll do, that I just released last week, called Change Ourselves. I actually shot a video in Kingston, Jamaica, one of the birthplaces of reggae music, and that's out for everyone to see. So I'll sing that now. Woo! Thank you guys for facilitating a beautiful conversation. I really like hearing your perspectives, and it's good to connect with like-minded individuals. It really is, just to feel that consciousness flowing and know that this might be flowing out into other people's minds as well is beautiful. So thanks for creating that service.
Yeah, the feeling's mutual, brother. Thank you for being here with us.
Yeah, thank you.
These episodes, are so filling to our hearts, and I know to our listeners. So right back at you.
Yeah, keep doing it. Keep it up. Ooh, that reverb though. I'm going back and forth between like podcast vocal and then singing vocal. So
It'd be pretty funny if you did the whole podcast.
if I was in an echo chamber for the whole thing, right?
The divine.
I imagine that's what the divine sounds like just like a reverb
Choosing.
voice in the sky. Listen to me, child.
Okay, this one's Change Ourselves. To change the world, we got to change ourselves from within. To change the world, we got to change ourselves now. To change the world, yeah, we got to change ourselves. To change the world, yeah, we got to change ourselves. Well, we got to stop playing the victim. Take some responsibility for our lives. We got to stop causing harm and let this most fundamental truth shine bright. We got to know that we are inextricably connected, and our actions affect the freedom of the collective. Respect that when behavior is aligned with the correct intention, society will experience redemption. To change the world, we got to change ourselves from within, to change the world, we got to change ourselves now. To change the world, yeah, we got to change ourselves. To change the world, yeah, we got to change ourselves. Because the right is an action which does not cause harm to another sentient being on this plane. Respect that every human interaction must be voluntary, otherwise it is coercion, pain. We got to know morality is not subjective. Distinguishing right from wrong is objective. Respect that our creator gives us natural law directive and won't accept no acts of aggression to change the world. We got to change ourselves from the inside to change the world. We got to change ourselves now to change the world. Yeah, we got to change ourselves first to change the world. Yeah, we got to change ourselves. Well, are you going to compromise your integrity for the fear of making other people angry? Now, are you going to compromise your integrity for the fear of making other people angry? Now, are you going to compromise your integrity for the fear of making other people angry? Now, are you going to compromise your integrity for the fear of making other people angry? Now, are you going to compromise your integrity for the fear of making other people angry? No. Are you going to compromise your integrity for the fear of making other people angry? Are you going to compromise your integrity for the fear of making other people angry? Now, are you going to compromise your integrity for the fear of making other people angry? To change the world, we got to change ourselves now. To change the world, yeah, we got to change ourselves from within. To change the world, we got to change ourselves now. To change the world, yeah, we got to change we got to change ourselves. We got to change ourselves. We got to change ourselves. We got to change ourselves.
And so it is again, another prayer that I could never find words to possibly describe the beauty that is the art of presence. Thank you so much for sharing that. You nailed it. So Eric and I have very optimistic, and some people would maybe say woo-woo, idealistic views of the future. Like we've been shown it, and I'm team humanity. I know the light wins. I know it's all perfect, right? And we will get there to the new earth, and it's going to be beyond any of our wildest dreams. And what's happening right now is necessary. But the number one question I think that we get asked as we talk to people just throughout this journey these last few years is immediately it's like, yeah, but this war and that and this corruption and that greed, right? It's like all these external problems. And my answer, partly is what we were saying earlier of like, this is all just a reflection of the things that aren't healed within ourselves. But my answer is always the same of like, realistically, right? Like, I'm not saying one person can't change the world in this sense, but fighting the wars or, trying to end the wars, trying to end the politics, trying to fight the system, all of these things, that takes a lot of energy. Those things are very big, they're very strong, right? If you want to truly change the world and what you're seeing, it all is within. It's all doing that inner work, healing those things within yourself to where you can look at it and not judge it. Because when we judge it, we're giving it negative energy, we're feeding it. And so thank you for just like so perfectly nailing that in a song. And I would love to hear your thoughts on that and how you created that, but also ask you, I realized we didn't even touch on it. What would you call your music style? It's beautiful and it's so unique. It's like reggae meets, I don't even know what to call it. So yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that and also hear about your style.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate the reflections once again. And one thing that you said was that it takes a lot of energy to try and fight all of these negative things that are happening out there, right? It takes a lot less energy to just stop engaging with them, right? But we have to know what morality is. And again, this song, it really is hitting on kind of Mark Passio's teachings of natural law and morality, of like the second verse, a right is an action that does not cause harm to another sentient being on this plane. Respect that every human interaction must be voluntary, otherwise it is coercion, pain, right? That's really all it comes down to. If we can all just interact voluntarily without coercion, if everything we do is voluntary, boom, we got the new earth. Done.
It's kind of like
right?
reminding me of voluntarism. We actually, our last
Exactly.
episode, we had Mark Gober, who was another speaker at Music and Sky, on, and we touched on this notion of voluntarism and really just sovereignty, which to me just really comes back to this deep core knowing of like, I am a sovereign child, a soul of whatever you want to call the divine, and everyone else is. We are all inherently equal. There's no hierarchy, there's no authority. It's that to me is what sovereignty is. And voluntarism, I feel like, as I'm learning, this is a very new thing for me, takes that a step further of, like you're saying, like if everything is voluntary, then we no longer have violence. We no longer have we no longer have any of these things because we're all knowing who we are, knowing our inherent sovereign value and equality, right?
Right. And if every human interaction is voluntary, right, then taxation can't exist anymore because taxation is a form of coercion and theft, right? It's not voluntary.
Can you just say that
All-
one more time? That was the thing for us, actually. 2 years ago, we owed $30,000 in taxes, and when I got
Owed.
that right. Well, at that time, we believed owed, and we're
Right.
under large threats of big things that they like to say, and that was what I think
Duress.
finally woke us up. I was like, no, like this isn't right. Like this isn't right.
Exactly. And it's involuntary, and if we're being forced to fund immoral activities, then we're being coerced into, right, continuing the earth that we don't want to see. And if we could just withdraw our energy from that, again, it's a solution by not doing. The solution to all the problems we face is in not doing. It's not in, oh, we have to go out and create this cryptocurrency, and I need to create all this music and release albums upon albums, and you guys need to create a ton of podcasts. No, the solution, like that is all beautiful, and that can lead us towards the solution, right? That can help to be a part of the solution. But the real solution is just disengaging from immoral activity. It's disengaging from anything that's not voluntary, right? If wars are definitely not voluntary, people being genocided is not voluntary, rape is involuntary sex, right? Taxation is involuntary business transaction. So if we can just get back to doing things that are the right thing, which is voluntary interactions, boom, that is our new earth. And so as much as I love the woo-woo, I used to be super woo-woo as well, and I still am to a degree. I'm all for that, and I'm all for visualizing the new earth that we want to create and using healing modalities and all of these beautiful technologies that we have available to us. It's just that I feel like the solution is so painfully simple, and so many people don't see that the solution really just comes down to morality and just understanding what rights are, actions that don't cause harm. Voluntary actions are rights, right? That's what we have the right to do, is engage in a voluntary way. And the term used to actually be anarchism, right? And that's the interesting thing. If you've gotten into this voluntarist discussion at all, you'll see that a lot of people who are voluntarist are former anarchists. And the term anarchy has a lot of charge to it, has a lot of negative charge. And that's by design, because the word on its face only means without an archy rulers. It just means without rulers. That's what the etymology means. So a land without rulers, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a land without rules. We could still have rules that we voluntarily agree on, and this is how we facilitate trade, and this is how we facilitate cooperation and organization and all these things that we want to see. It just means that certain people can't rule over others. It means there's no masters and there's no slaves. It means that human interactions are voluntary. And so I'm just doing my best to spread that message through music because I think that the solution is a lot simpler than we realize. And I'm all for all the woo-woo stuff. It's just that if the woo-woo stuff is distracting us from the core issue of morality, then it's really not actually getting us anywhere. If the woo-woo stuff is like enhancing our understanding, our overstanding of morality, then awesome. You know what I mean? But that's kind of my take on that. And then you were asking about the musical style. I think roots reggae music is the thing that has influenced me more than anything else. I'm a huge fan of people like Protege, Jesse Royal, Lila Ica, I really like. Oh man, so many amazing artists. Mortimer, out of Jamaica primarily. Primarily a lot of the music is Jamaican music, and I know my music has kind of its own thing. It has some hip hop influence and some other influence, but definitely roots reggae music, roots rock reggae. Midnight is another epic artist if you're familiar. Von Benjamin, Akai Becca. So those are kind of some of the influences to hit on that part of the question. But
Yeah.
what do you guys think about the morality thing? Like, are these ideas new to you? Do they make sense to you? Because I feel like a lot of times I say these things and I get people like look at me like with this blank stare, and I'm just like, morality, And I even saw some people at Music and Sky, they were wearing shirts that said morality. And I'm like, this is good to see, because I feel like it's just one of those things that once it clicks, it makes total sense, right? It's like if we just engage morally and we understand what morals are and what rights are, then we can actually create the new earth. But until then, we have this very elusive definition of like, oh, we want to have eco villages and we want to have all this stuff. But it's like, how are we going to do that if we don't have a core understanding of what rights are? You see what I mean?
Yeah. First of all, you're the first person to ever ask us a question. So I love it. Thank you. Thank you for the question. And something you were saying, you were like, the solution is so painfully simple. And I feel like that is just like always I don't know if it's crux or paradox of like the human condition, is it really is always that simple. We tell people all the time. And I think it becomes so normal for us. And then we have these moments sometimes where there's these stark moments of like, whoa, we really have disengaged from the system. Like maybe we
Yeah.
should re-engage just a little bit, because I don't know what, like we don't engage with politics. Like we don't engage with so many things, the news, the media, like
Good.
all these things, and we haven't for almost 2 years now, full time. And so we just don't give our energy to that, and then so when people bring it up, it's like I can't even have a conversation with you about it, because I just don't give my energy to that. I give my energy to love and consciousness and expansion and community and the things that we're building under our 3 brands. And so to answer your question, I think you are describing something we talk about a lot and kind of our core most value in just different words, right? You can call it so many different ways. And I think this is the really beautiful thing about consciousness and about human evolution. I guess you could just say all beings evolution. We don't even keep it to human. Is like there's this common thread of truth and similarity in different things. And to some people the morality thing is going to register, right? That's going to be the thing that like clicks. To some people it's love, to some people it's consciousness, to some people it's sovereignty. Like whatever that thing is, whatever words we put on it that brings you back into alignment with truth, which is love, right? Remembering the divinity, remembering the light, and doing that work for yourself. That journey is probably the most diverse, right? That journey can look like a plethora of things. I think it works. And to be honest, I hadn't heard it described as morality. It makes total sense, and it's perfectly in line with what we talk about. I never really had words for it. And so this is actually really helpful in context, because I just always say, like, I am a sovereign. These are my words, right? Insert words that work for you, listeners. What works in my brain these days is I am a sovereign child of God, the creator, and I am equal in that with everybody. And the core universal law to me is, do no harm. Do no harm. And as long as you are
Exactly.
acting in accordance, and that was another thing Mark said that was brilliant, was his talk on how essentially government as it is like in violation of natural law. And that's what you're saying, is when we come back to morality, we come back to alignment, we are no longer, these things no longer exist because they're not in alignment with truth. They're not in alignment with morals and ethics and love and insert whatever word you want. And so as you move into that state of alignment, you're just like, meh, that just doesn't exist here. And it's not to be ignorant. And, I think you touched on a beautiful point about the woo-woo. And to anyone who's listening, if you don't know what that is, it's a kind of jokey term that's used to describe the greater spiritual space, all the woo-woo things. And we definitely spent some time there, but um, that space, people get stuck there. And I mean,
Exactly.
I have come across some people, and this is not bad, it's not judgment, it's all perfect. It's just surprising to me because we spent some time there, I less than 6 months, and really quickly realized, oh, this is just another place to get me stuck. Because when you get stuck in that space, I mean, some people have been there 5, 10, 15. I've been doing yoga and meditation and all this for 20 years, but they haven't gotten to the level of awareness and love and consciousness that maybe the three of us are. And I'm like, how does that happen? Like, how does one get stuck there, right? And it's in coming to that awareness and remembering that that is all great. And that is not the solution. That is not the end goal. That is not the truth. That is not love. And so, yeah, I mean, that's a really long-winded answer. I don't know if you have anything to add, but
That's
it's
great.
totally
It's
resonating.
on
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's always so interesting to me. You talked about it a little bit earlier about how art transcends the limitations of language. And we as people on this planet are kind of subject to the limitations of language to have these discussions when we're talking about them outside of the context of art. And so it's always interesting to me to see similar truths and energetic, like, just building blocks of the universe described and understood in different ways. I always go back to like the blind mice analogy, describing an elephant, right? This is the tail, this is the ear, and people can get stuck in thinking that the ear is the elephant rather than understanding that the ear is part of an elephant. And morality is such a fundamental building block to what we talk about. And I appreciate you bringing it into our awareness because up until this point, it really wasn't. But it fits so perfectly into the understanding that unconditional love is the fundamental basis of the universe. And,
Yep.
when we live a moral life, unconditional love or just love in general is what flows naturally. It's aligning ourselves to the truth of do no harm. And when we do that, only love can come out. You can't do no harm and then also spew hatred, right? That,
Exactly.
that just that just doesn't work. And so it really is so simple. We always say just always choose love. We do that in our partnership. We do that on a daily basis, whenever ego and stuff flares up, because, this journey isn't one of like, okay, cool, you choose love and, you made the one choice, you pass the test, going through the golden gates and you're done, right? It's constantly,
Level up.
right? It's constantly requalifying. It's constantly choosing the moral thing. And it's interesting, the as we walk this journey, it's almost like the opportunities to heal this for the collective get greater and greater and greater. I've recently been experiencing a lot of anger and a lot of rage come up for me that wasn't present in my life before. And I've been sitting with this and understanding that maybe it isn't all mine. Maybe it's ancestral, maybe it's coming from the collective, and it's an opportunity for me as a conscious person to meet it with love and to choose the moral thing and to choose the loving thing. And
Yep.
that may happen in the moment, that may happen after the moment, but whatever it is, it's about requalifying that.
I want to really caveat here too, and we could go down this rabbit hole for 3 hours. That's not fully what this episode's about. But for our listeners, I want to be really clear. Morality, when we say that, right? Like even just that word, be cautious. And I say that because it's really easy, my mind, and I'm saying this from experience, is like, well, doing the right thing is following the law. Mm, Not
Morality
necessarily.
does not equal legality.
Right. Thank
What
you
is
for way
legal is
better
not
words.
necessarily moral, and what
Right.
is moral is not necessarily legal. And
Thank you.
that's
Thank you for
that's
that.
the thing. Yeah, it's a really important distinction. So thanks. And then also what you were saying, kind of it's a maris, right?
You
That's how
can
you
say it
pronounce it?
however you want. Some people, I say it amorous, but
Amaris. Okay.
Amaris is growing on me. You're not the only
Or no,
person that
okay,
says
I'm
it that
sorry.
way. I have a good friend who he still says Amaris, and I've left it alone, and I'm like, I kind of like
Amaris.
both.
So what you were saying is, you said you touched on the two fundamental principles of voluntarism without realizing that you were doing it, but you said sovereignty first, right? Sovereignty is that you own yourself. That's that you are in self-ownership. That's the first principle. And then the second principle is do no harm, which is the non-aggression principle. Those two principles are the foundation of what people call voluntarism, right? And
Mm.
voluntarism is the only true moral. It's not a religion. It's just principles. There's a huge difference between principles. What does principle mean? It means first things. It's the first thought, principle, one, the only, the first thing, right? And the religions, like what we were talking about with the new age, how people get kind of trapped there, it's because it's another religion. And people don't want to admit that to themselves. They get trapped there because it has a lot of the things that we're looking for as people who have maybe explored other organized religions. We've maybe explored Christianity or Judaism or other things, other belief systems, and haven't found the truth that we were looking for. And then we might have found a nugget of that truth in the New Age. The problem is that the New Age is created as a religion to entrap the mind and keep people from going beyond that on purpose. And one of the main ways that that's done is through this idea of solipsism. And solipsism is the idea that there's no such thing as objective truth. There's no such thing as objective morality. There's no such thing as objective right and wrong. And when you see a lot of people who are in that, you can't tell why their vibration can't go beyond that limiting belief. Like, right, they're doing the yoga and they're doing all these things, but the mind can't go beyond that because it's stuck in one of the biggest traps is solipsism. And so again, we're just using language here. It's just for fun, right? But I think language can be a tool that we can use to kind of define things. And then when we can define things, we can have a greater understanding of how we can actually operate in the world in a moral way, as you have both been. You both hit on it beautifully as well in your own reflections of that. So,
Mm.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that reflection. Yeah, it comes back to something I really wanted to bring up too, of just like truth just is truth, right? Like
Yep.
it just is. You can't even really describe it. You just know it when you feel it. It's a frequency. And, something you touched on was you said nugget and it triggered something. And this is in no way a plug because this is kind of a project I'm doing. It's all service work and has nothing to do with me, but I actually today am launching my solo podcast, which is called the Loving with Grace podcast. It's an extension of my ministry, which is a spiritual consciousness ministry, which is a little weird. I think the word ministry kind of breaks people's brains. I had some healing
Woo!
work to do around it. There was a lot of
Woo!
healing work to do. And in the intro, which I'm releasing later today, I talk about how the universe is like this multidimensional quantum infinite puzzle. And there's all these puzzle pieces, right? And so Buddhism has a piece, and Christianity has a piece, and the woo-woo has a piece, and this has a piece. And it's just like this the issue and the challenge for people is in remembering that like one piece isn't the puzzle and you need all of the pieces to get the full picture of reality, right? And not getting attached to those and exploring those in a way that is like, authentic and healthy and meaningful. And so I love that you brought that up. The whole premise of that is exploring metaphysics and consciousness and spirituality and religion, all of them from a neutral, all-inclusive perspective of like, how can we use all of these tools, right? Not the thing, not the answer. That's what religion often wants us to believe is like, this is the thing, or government, or, insert anything here. Like, this is, I feel like the ultimate, what's the word? Like hijacking of the human mind, right? Is like if we just dangle this like one thing, this is it, and then they'll focus all their attention on this and the blinders go on. And it's like, how do we remove those blinders and open ourselves to this multidimensional reality that is just not as simple as like one thing?
Yeah, I mean, it really is like this trap, and you see it all over the world of, hey, we've got the thing, we
And
figured out
we
the
fall
thing,
into this.
come follow us, and
Yeah.
Yep.
we've fallen into it too. And
Just pay
whenever
$333 and you can have the truth.
exactly, and it's so funny to me now because when I went through my kind of awakening phase outside the dark night of the soul, kind of in this search for what is truth. And you kind of go through the destruction period, and then you question everything, you take everything off the table, and you say, okay, what is no longer serving me? How can I start putting the puzzle of myself back together before even tackling the the puzzle outside? Um, and realizing we're all here as part of the journey to figure it out.
Yep.
And had we figured it out, we would be living in a different world right now. And so accepting that nobody has it figured out and really following your own inspiration and your own connection with the divine, because uh, because each one of us has a piece of that puzzle. And we say that all the time on this podcast is, you know, when we live aligned with the divine, aligned with our heart, and we birth into this plane what we were meant to bring, we bring that aspect of truth that only we can bring.
Mm.
And, you are doing that through music. I do it through design. This beautiful person does it through ministry and consciousness and just all of the amazing things that you
Most of the
do
time.
most of the time. And it's just, if we ever run into,
It's magical.
it is magical. And if we ever run
Don't
into,
call me woo woo. I'm just it is magical. It's magic.
yeah, but I mean, the woo woo also has its own space. I feel like it's kind of a stepping stone.
Yep.
The problem with the woo woo and any religion in general is that it becomes outcome based, right? If you do enough yoga, if you do enough meditation, then you will
Hmm.
achieve enlightenment. If you do enough prayer, if you do enough service work, you will, whatever that religion,
Repent.
yeah, if you repent enough, it's all outcome
Confession.
based. It's not about getting to a space, it's about living from the heart. It's about constantly living from a moral and loving place.
Do you, I mean,
Yep.
of course we want to hear your thoughts, but do you have a song that is aligned with what we're talking about here right
Oh
now?
man, so
I'm
many. It's
feeling
like this
something
it
come
keeps
through.
coming up. Yeah. I wanted to just touch on what you were saying. One thing that you said earlier was how you've been feeling some anger coming up. And that's one of the things that I feel like is really it's really important to look at that because that's one of the things that the new age tries to suppress. And Mark Passio calls it a sacred gift of anger. He refers to it as a sacred gift, and it's something that we can actually alchemize. And then, Amaris, what you're saying is it's a holistic thing, right? It's like we have to look at all of the pieces of the puzzle. The anger is also a piece of the puzzle. If we just shun away these quote unquote negative emotions because it's not the light, it's not the love, we'll just ignore our anger, we ignore our fear, we just push all those things off to the side, eventually they're going to come back and bite us because we're not integrating all of that together. It's a process of integration. It's a process of being a holistically intelligent being, right? So let's do another song. It's really beautiful talking to both of you because I feel like it's just fully in resonance, and
Mm.
I'm
When
grateful
you
for the
Likewise.
opportunity to speak with people who are fully in resonance.
Likewise,
when
brother.
you when you came up on the stage and you performed the whole time, we're like, we don't approach people often, but we're like, we're going up there the second he gets off stage. And one of our friends also was like, oh my God, waiting in line to talk to you, and he was like, do you hear this guy, like, do you hear this right now, like, what is this? I'm like, I know, right? Like, he has to come on the podcast because that resonance, like, it's a beautiful thing to be in that energy, and that's when the most beautiful art is created. So we're creating that right now with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I'm
So
dying to know. Which one are you gonna do?
this one's integrity.
Mm.
Yes. I was hoping that one would come through.
I'ma live with integrity. I'ma live with integrity, I say. Here on the Loving Consciously podcast, you know. Boom! And keeping the promises that I make to myself. Prioritize physical, mental, and spiritual health. Life gets rough, I'm rising above and never fear to be held. Deep inside me is a calling, and this calling be felt, yes. Making the most of every single minute today, yeah. The power of presence awaken my essence, intentions they fade. Strong intentions and emotions are the recipe for change. Must align with my actions in a passionate state. Align with my actions, yes, in a passionate state. I say, I won't run away. No, I won't be running from myself today. Running from myself today. Cause the real me is the only me I can't escape. Oh yes, I can't escape the real me. So I must live with integrity. I wanna live with integrity. With integrity I say. Listening to my heart, doing the right thing, even when nobody else is watching, you know what I'm saying? Gotta get back on the path when I fall off. My mindset back on track, won't let it take too long, yeah. Stay present and meditate when it all seems wrong. Got to surrender to the curtain for it gets too strong, yes. The outer reality is a reflection of inner space. And when I open up my heart, the world's a better place. I've forgiven myself and others for our past mistakes, so we can move past all the trauma into Jah embrace. We moving past all the traumas, yes, into Jah embrace. So will I fit the mold of others' expectations? No. Or live a life of freedom and celebration? Will I paralyze myself with hesitation? Yeah. Or live a life of self-realization? I won't run away. No, I won't be running from myself today. Running from myself today. Cause the real me is the only me I can't escape. Oh yes. So I'ma live with integrity. I'ma live with integrity. With integrity I say. I'ma live with integrity.
Oh my creator. That was magical. And I've been playing that on repeat. I love that song. But that line, the real me is the only me I can't escape. I also just decided right now, I don't care what I have to do to make it happen. This is the video that we are going to put the video up for the first time. Like, this video has to be shared because
Oh, sweet.
what were you just playing? What is that thing?
This is called a melodica. This is a really popular instrument in reggae music. It's kind of used as a lead instrument. It's basically like a harmonica, but it's similar. It has metal reeds, but instead of it being harmony, instead of it having like a harmonica, you play it and there's chords, but this is just single notes. So you can play chords or you can play single notes, and it just gives you the keyboard so that you can play lead lines, and it's a really popular instrument in reggae music. And I actually wasn't planning on that. I just realized, I was like, oh, the melodica's right here, and then I just grabbed it. So that was kind of fun that happened that way.
Yeah, that's awesome.
How many instruments do you play, Grant?
I don't know. It's a good question. I just kind
What?
of. Keyboard is my foundation. That's what I started with, and then I think that gave me. A lot of people say that piano is it's actually a percussion instrument. It's a very rhythmic instrument, and I think that kind of gave me the foundation for drums. I think drums is my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I often play live, as you heard me at Music and Sky playing the drum kit. And yeah, and I also play guitar and bass and some flutes. I got some cool woo-woo flutes down here.
The
This
didgeridoo.
one is actually my friend in Peru got this for me in Peru. This one's so
Whoa.
just, whatever I can, whatever the spirit moves me, I definitely feel the most at home on the drum kit, the guitar, keys, bass.
I
But
would
I want to learn
really,
sax.
yeah.
Oh,
Oh, we've seen two Grizz. We got to see Grizz live at our last music festival because we don't engage in unconscious music festivals now, but that was a musical performance. When
Oh
he
yeah.
got up there and played the sax, and then what was the one? There was another one at High Vibe that we saw. I'll pull it up right now, but I know Eric has a really, really good question he wants to ask you about music festivals. So we'll just kind of segue into
Yeah,
that
yeah.
while I look up this other
yeah,
one.
yeah, actually, that music festival that she's talking about, we got to see Grizz, and Grizz was on his way out. I think that was his second to last performance.
Ever. Yeah.
Ever.
And
Oh wow.
Josh Teed.
really, oh yeah, Josh Teed is the other person.
Josh Teed played saxophone at High Vibe, and there's something about the saxophone when it's played along with, conscious music that makes you feel like, oh,
The
it just like it feels like it's like I'm doing this thing with my fingers, but it's just like strumming your soul, and you're just like,
Yeah.
oh
it
yeah,
has
that's
soul.
so
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
So
that
yes,
instrument has
learn the
soul.
saxophone. But I forgot real quick, I wanted to plug while we're on this before we lose it. Do go check out, it's under Presence, that's with a Z. We'll plug all this at the end, but do go check out Grant's YouTube because that entire performance from Music and Sky is up there. And you were playing the drums the entire time. And, we're not experiencing that in this. And I really want listeners to experience it because it was a beautiful musical set and you were really good on the drums.
Yeah, I
Cheers.
mean, I played the drums very briefly when I was younger. I very much resonate with percussion instruments. I taught myself a little bit of piano during the pandemic era, and
Air quotes.
yeah, right. And there's just something about both of those instruments that really hit home with the soul. And like you can actually retune your energetic field using them. And so there's something really beautiful about the music that you're putting out in that it's actually healing, right? There's lots of studies on sound healing, and you typically see it in Tibetan sound bowls or sound crystal bowls, but music is healing in all aspects. If it's drum, if it's guitar, it's all about the frequency of the sound. And that kind of pushes us back into the music festival scene and what we experienced at this last EDM festival. And we,
This was a year
it
ago.
was a year ago, and we chose to exit that scene because,
Bass Canyon.
yep, Bass Canyon. And it was interesting for us because it was a really difficult thing to release because up until that point, music festivals were a place for us to really come together and connect and to experience this kind of greater frequency of love in the collective. Like, yes, there's people experiencing other frequencies, but at a kind of inherent base level, gatherings like that were people coming together in unity. And we noticed something at this last music festival that there was this big shift that happened. And rather than feeling our cups being filled, feeling like we were participating in something greater and coming together in love, we actually felt like our energy was being sapped and drained. And it was just this very stark difference. And we noticed the the frequency and the sound of the music was different. It was very disresonant. It was very chaotic,
Violent.
and
Rage.
yep, and even to the imagery and the graphics of the artists that were kind of more on the psychedelic, more on the woo side, completely switched over to more monstrous, vulgar, satanic.
Demons.
And it was like, what happened? Because it's the same artists, and some just a big shift happened. And so I wonder if, with your experience in the scene, if you can speak to that at all, but also, how we can move back and use music as a place of gathering and a place to uplift one another again, um, moving forward as we grow and as we build this new aspect of Earth.
Woo! That's a really good question. Beautiful question. And I guess I'll speak to the first part of it, which is around, the subtle energy, I think is what you're getting at, right? Is that kind of what you're talking about? Like the subtle energy that can be felt at certain festivals, and
Hmm.
the subtle energy in music, the things that are not necessarily out in the open in the lyrics necessarily, or it's something that you just can feel, you can just tap into if you're aware. And I've most certainly had that same experience where I was at certain gatherings and festivals where I was like, I just don't think this is resonating with me and my soul. And I think that, especially with the plant medicines that are commonly taken at certain festivals as well, what can happen is like an opening of the psychic realms, right? So the music and everybody being opened up to these new experiences, and the psychic realms being opened up through psychedelics, which oftentimes are not being taken very intentionally. It's being taken in a way of like, oh, let's get fucked up, or let's just have an altered state, but there's no intention behind what the altered state actually is that we want to have. It's not like I'm choosing to take this sacrament in order to feel peace and harmony in my body. It's like, oh, I just want to feel something, right? Whatever. And sometimes stacks of substances. And I think that's the real danger that I've seen in especially the EDM scene and the bass music scene, which, I have friends who are very involved with that. My friend Arcturus, who we released a song together today on this Lionsgate 88. We released a song, and we can maybe premiere that here, but he and I have talked about this extensively, is we have a tool, a gift as musicians, that we need to wield it wisely. We need to wield it with integrity. We have to know the power of the frequencies behind what we're using and use it in a way that's responsible, right? Like, we have to use it responsibly. A weapon or a tool or whatever, a technology, it always, with power comes responsibility. And I think music, as a weapon against the darkness, right? Or as a tool to uplift the consciousness, right? It still needs to be wielded responsibly. And I think that I've definitely experienced that. And I think that a big thing is I just don't go to any festivals anymore where alcohol is in the picture. Because what happens is alcohol, typically used to be described as spirits. Why did they describe alcohol as spirits? Because it opens the gateway for spirits to come and enter into the body and do as they will with you, essentially. And that's why some people have a really fun time with alcohol. Some people are, having a good time. And some people are acting like complete psychos, right? And when that's mixed also with other substances and plant medicines, it can create a rift in the psychic field. It can create openings in the dimensional portals where dark entities can come in and start energy harvesting off of people. And I think that might have been something that you guys experienced, where you felt like your energy was being sapped from you. And I've totally witnessed that same thing. So hopefully that answers the question. And then what was the second part of the question?
Yeah, I mean, you touched on something so important, well, several so important things. First of all, thank you for calling plant medicine a sacrament. That is beautiful. I'm gonna take that gem with me, because it is, and it is in our experience. And you nailed it with alcohol. That has been the shift for us, and we just don't go. We've been to High Vibe this year, went to Music and Sky. Obviously, neither of those had alcohol. And it's that same thing we were talking about in the beginning. And shout out to Mike and Alpha Vedic and the team, and shout out to Equanimous and his team, because when you do that, you're not going to make money. And they both spoke at those two events, and they both said, we're not selling alcohol, so we're not going to make any money on this. If anything, it may cost them money. And a lot of the artists are doing this, just to do it and share their art. And so yeah, alcohol changes everything. I mean, I, at all possible costs, try to avoid places where alcohol are. We are completely alcohol free, have been for, I've lost count now, I don't know, 7 months when we were like, nope, no more. But also, you touched on the plant medicine and how it really does. It opens up the experience, right? It opens up the mind, and same with alcohol. And we were having this, I don't know why I feel called to share this right now, and then you can share that second part of the question. But we recently had this experience. So, we're full-time RVers, which I know you're a fellow van lifer too, so we share that. But we're full-time, this is our house, and we travel around currently visiting other communities, other conscious communities, off-grid communities, all different, family farms, because we're building one. And so we're going around kind of learning and meeting, and we're also going to build a network to connect these guys. And we were having a conversation a few days ago with a prior to Yellowstone, an amazingly spiritually and consciously tapped in person. And, they identified as LDS and were hands down the most rational, woke, and like truth-oriented religious person I've ever met. And as we are talking to them, we were talking about this, and she shared that there's this somewhere in the LDS religion, I'm not going to get this right because this is not my field, but there's this text or prophecy that is shared, and it's about how this person who has the gift of sight like walks into a bar, and they can literally see, all the different realms of what's happening, and they see the people sitting at the bar, right, and they see the spirits around them like screaming at them spiritually, energetically, in their auric field, like, drink more, drink, yeah, take a shot, right? And it's like this, it's been opened. And she said the moment, they say that the moment the person, the individual made the decision, even just subconsciously, to have that drink or to do insert behavior, it was like watching their crown chakra being ripped open at the top of their head, and then spirits started climbing in. And it was like fair game. And we talked a lot about consent and how when you go into these environments, or you don't even have to drink, right? Just going into these environments, there's this underlying, I don't think we quite understand it yet, and I'm definitely going to explore this for my podcast, but there's this underlying spiritual truth of like, consent is not necessarily like me saying I amorous consent to spirits crawling into my body right now, right? Consent can maybe be like consuming the alcohol because I've now lowered my vibration into a frequency where I've consented. And so just this is a really like sidebar thing, but I think it's really important as we release this episode and we talk about music and art, and music festivals have become such a huge part of the culture nowadays, is like, be mindful, to our listeners, be mindful of what you are consuming. That includes medicines, that includes alcohol, that includes environments, it includes every single thing that you enter into, because when you do, in some way, shape, or form, in ways you may not understand spiritually, we're consenting, and we experienced it. It was actually a really horrific experience. I quite literally felt like I was amongst demons, and like my energy was being siphoned, and I could feel my consciousness being pulled down. And I was hearing, Source, my guides, my higher self in my head saying, leave, get out of here. Like, you have to stay awake. Like, you can't submit to this. This is not in alignment. And we did. We left early and we never went
Wow.
back. And so, yeah, just thank you for sharing all that. I share that, with listeners to just put some context and encourage contemplation. That's a word I really like these days of, you know, and it leads perfectly into your second question here, but start thinking about these things, because awareness is like our greatest tool. That's the light shining on these things. And my hope is that as this reaches people, it will bring that awareness of like, maybe you hadn't thought about these things, right? Like, oh, it's just a music festival. I'm conscious. I'm not drinking, right? And that's not to say, again, like you said beautifully earlier, all things are inherently bad. All music festivals are bad, or all music is bad. It's just bring intention, bring awareness, and have reverence.
Yeah, the same thing is true of alcohol too. Like my partner Jen, we rarely ever drink, but occasionally she likes to use mezcal as a sacrament as well. And like,
Mm-hmm.
it can be a beautiful medicine as well if it's taken intentionally, just like literally anything can be. The water
Mm-hmm.
that we drink, when we drink the water and we bless it with a high vibrational frequency, it has a completely different crystalline structure to the water than if we don't do that. And I think the same thing is true of anything that we intake into us. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, it's just that alcohol is very commonly taken with zero intention. Cannabis also very commonly taken with zero intention. You know, these kind of like legalized and like culturally upheld, you know, oh, we're going to culturally caffeine and culturally alcohol and all these substances have been like put on a pedestal. For some reason, that means that people take them with zero intention, and then that's what creates the reality that we're experiencing, where a lot of times some pretty vile things can happen when we take substances without intention, right?
Mm.
So it's definitely, like you said, it's a consent thing. Consent is crucial to voluntarism, right? If in order for there to be voluntary interactions, there has to be consent. So, yeah, I agree with everything you're saying.
Yeah, we have a really beautiful episode I would really love to plug right now called Loving Cannabis Consciously with Ryan Sprague. He is a conscious cannabis coach.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's a good friend of ours. We love Ryan.
nice. Yeah, he's doing some awesome work. I'll definitely check that one out.
Yeah, and for our listeners too, if any of this is resonating and you want to dig a little deeper, that's a really beautiful episode on this kind of topic of re-exalting these sacred plants to their, sacramental nature. And yeah, I think this is a perfect segue into your last question. I'd love after that if you'd play your new song that just premiered today. You send it
Yep.
to me right before this, and then we'll get some info on you for our listeners and close us out. But
Yeah, I mean, thank you for that reflection, and I hadn't really considered from the perspective of portals being opened, through the use of psychedelic, and we talk about the reverence of medicine on this podcast quite a bit, and when things aren't taken with reverence on a mass scale, we then see the ability for negative entities to come through, and I'm yeah, I mean, it just makes total sense. And so both of the festivals that we've gone to this year have been no alcohol, and both have been fundamentally life-changing experiences because you get the connection and that love that we were speaking to, and that unity that comes from gathering and people gathering in consciousness and with intention, without the introduction of anything that is not of the light.
Mm-hmm.
And so the other part of that question was, how do you envision, as these festivals are new, right? And so how do you envision as an artist and as somebody that is pioneering the scene, like what do those gatherings look like? What do they include? How do you foresee the evolution of festivals moving forward as a tool to help our consciousness grow?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, I think that one of the reasons that I was really attracted to Music and Sky was because I saw right off the bat that they put fundamental principles of truth, love, freedom, and morality at the forefront of what the festival was organized around. And to be honest, I don't see any other festivals doing that or any other gatherings that I've been a part of. There's a couple, other ones, but I think that Music and Sky definitely is on the forefront of that, and it was an incredible gathering, and I definitely hope to be back in the future. One thing that was coming up to mind while you were talking about how, oh, if there's no alcohol at the festival, then no one makes any money, and that's just kind of the funny thing where it's like people are willing to throw often way overpriced drinks like $10 here, $10 there for a beer, right? What if we were able to redirect that energy exchange at festivals? So like instead of $10 here, $10 there going to buy a drink, you're shooting $10 at the artist. You're shooting $10 at the people who are throwing down for the ice baths. You're putting, you know what I mean? So that there's that energy and that abundance. Because one of the things that I see a lot of the time is that one of the aspects of the New Age movement where I feel like another limiting belief that's a part of the New Age quote unquote religion is kind of like the belief that money's evil, right? And money is an interesting thing because the word means mon eye, one eye. It's like the one eye, and then you have the pyramid with the all-seeing eye. And obviously, in its current form, we all know, I'm preaching to the choir, we all know that money is being used as a control system to steal the vast majority of the productivity of people's labor. away from them and keep us in a state of scarcity, right? What I see as the future is if we can use festivals as an opportunity to engage with money in a new way. And we don't see it as evil, we just see it as this is just an energy exchange, right? Because at the end of the day, it's just an energy exchange. And in the world that we want to live in, that energy exchange would be consensual. Nobody would be, using deception to profit off the profits of our labor and steal the products of our labor from us. And there's already tools, like a really good example of that is Monero, which is a completely private, completely fast, free, or very, very cheap to use cryptocurrency that anybody could use. And if we went into festivals where everybody was using Monero, we could actually create a super abundant economy where the economic flow between people for energy exchange of different goods and services, right? Because when we come to a festival, we're all bringing our highest. We're bringing the best services, goods, whatever we can provide. We're bringing that to the maximum level that we can, right? And then if we had an ability for that energy to flow more effortlessly between us, such as Monero, we could actually show an example of what a new Earth economy could actually look like, where the 90% of the products of our labor isn't being stolen off the top through the form of taxation and inflation and using these corrupt criminal money systems like, got these bullshit paper, these toilet paper bills right here. This is some bullshit, This is
Debt notes. They're debt notes.
Wipe my ass with these debt notes, right? Pretty soon you're going to need a wheelbarrow full of these $100 bills to buy anything because it's being inflated at such a ridiculous rate because we're allowing the currency that we use to be spent overseas to fund the genocide of children in Gaza, And if we take that back and we say, no, we're going to use currency that we created, that doesn't steal the products of our labor from us, then they can no longer use the products of our labor to go kill children in Gaza. You see what I'm saying? It's our decision. We have to choose to disengage from these toilet paper debt notes at some point or another. So to answer your question of what do you see as the future of festivals? I see festivals as the proving ground where we can test out how to use, and I don't think that eventually we won't need money at all. Eventually we'll be so abundant, we'll be all sharing our gifts to such an extreme degree, we'll be living in such insane abundance from all contributing the products of our labor, hallelujah, that we don't need money at all because there's so much abundance to go around that we don't need to hoard any or keep any for ourselves. But until that point, we need something to transition, right? So we need the teachings of morality. We need a moral education of this is how we're going to use right action. We're going to engage in a festival on the basis of I own myself, you own yourself, self-ownership, sovereignty, that principle number one of voluntarism, and number two, non-aggression principle, right? We can understand that as the basis, and then we can stop using these debt notes, which inherently go against that. Because when we use, I'm still guilty, I'm still using these debt notes, right? To fund my life and do the things that I want to do and use it for my energy. But if we could use festivals as an incubator, as a proving ground, as a testing ground, where we could show, look how much abundance we can generate amongst everyone in a free, voluntary economy. And there's actually a term for this, which Samuel Edward Konkin III describes as agorism. And my friend Derek Brose has done some really excellent work on bringing that term, the agora, kind of more to the mainstream consciousness. And basically what agorism or counter economics, basically what this is just taking our energy away from the debt slavery currency and using our own form of currency or barter or trade or whatever it needs to be so that the energy stays within the economy of us conscious creators. And we're not bleeding off all of this energy to the satanic control system that's genociding children in Gaza and, instigating wars all over everywhere but the United States. It's probably going to come home to roost pretty soon. But you see what I'm saying, right? It's I think the festivals could literally be the opportunity for us to show, hey, look, we can have a completely self-sufficient economy that is completely voluntary. All our transactions are voluntary. We all own ourselves. We all abide by the non-aggression principle of do no harm, and we create massive abundance for everyone. And then we can evolve past the need for money altogether.
Mm. That was a really beautiful and intelligent answer. Thank you for that perspective. I was thinking of several things while you were talking. Number one, something we're doing a lot with our slash his. I mean, he's the creative. I just do the like technical side of things, but the design studio, because he's an architect and a designer, is with clients, every single client, we ask, is there a way that we can do an equitable energy service or product trade where we don't have to involve this fake paper, we call them debt notes, but yeah, fake paper
Yeah,
money.
they are.
It's not even really money, but and just offering that to listeners, like there's always different ways. Waiting for the dog to jump down.
And then the shake.
And then the shake. There are always different ways to exchange energy equitably. It's rewiring that thinking. That's what I'm trying to say is a call forward to everyone listening to this to start or continue to rewire your thinking that when you do something or receive something from someone else, the exchange is these paper pieces of fake debt notes. It's energy, right? And there are a infinite amount of ways to exchange that energy, be it products, service, time, etc. And so that's something I just wanted to plug in here because, getting off of this system that we're currently in, it is tough. And these are just some creative ways to do that.
The design studio wouldn't be able to function if it weren't for your role, right? And so that's the thing about what you're talking about with festivals is that everybody shows up in their role, in their kind of calling and bringing the very best that they can. For me, that's design. You are an incredibly organized and like the way that you work with numbers and patterns and connecting people is very different than what I've seen with anybody else. And so I'm able to be more in my gift because you are in your gift. And I think that that's what you're talking about, Grant, is that when everybody is living from their gift, there is this super mega abundance because you're not wasting energy doing something that isn't yours to do.
Yep.
And that the result of that is essentially you get the very best food, you get the very best art, you get the very best architecture, you get the very best, most efficient, systems because everybody's living from that gift. And what you described about festivals being the proving ground for what this world could look like, I think you're absolutely right because that's what we've experienced from these 3 festivals that we've been to this year.
We did an episode on this called Seeing the New World of Love, and it was right after one of these festivals, and we just talked about what you're kind of talking about, but I hadn't put the click together with music festivals, so that's brilliant. Of these really do like do show like what the new world, quote unquote, what our future looks like, right? Like what it looks like when it doesn't look like what it looks like right now. And I love so much that you talked about the ultimate goal being the end of money. It brings me back to the gene keys. We love the gene keys so much.
Yeah.
And in my activation sequence, actually, my purpose gene key is the communion gene key. And the essence of what that is obviously at its highest enlightened state is cosmic communion. But in that process, as you move into the gift level, it's about the end of money, the end of the need for money. Synergy is the gift. And it's about that, the end of the need for food as well, because you become of the light. And I just love that you brought that up, and I want to plug that as well. If people are interested in this concept, this gene key really dives into hierarchy versus heterarchy, and how do we as a society synergistically move into a system where we are all working together to create, and as such, no longer need money, no longer need insert blank all of these things. So I love that, and I love that you brought that up. And
Mhm.
I would love, how many times can I say that word? Love, 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 love. If you would play your new song. I feel like this is the perfect time to share that and bring this beautiful new piece of art that you just released today, correct?
Yep.
You and Arcturus, which love
Yep.
the name.
Arcturus. Yeah. So this one's called Promised Land, and the the idea originally, I was singing like the hook was coming. It's Presence music in our tourist man. We're making the music in the promised land because we're here in Sedona, and Sedona is in one way a promised land. It's a land where dreams can come to reality, where we can interact with nature in a way that can amplify our creative visions and things like that. But then as I was writing it, I realized the promised land is actually an internal state, and it's a state we've all felt. I know y'all have felt that as well, where it's like you've reached that state of pure bliss, pure consciousness, and that state is the promised land to me. So it's kind of like the double meaning behind this one. This actually isn't the fully finished version. This is kind of like a couple revisions ago. Probably no one will notice, but it's kind of funny because I haven't actually gotten the final draft into my set from Daniel yet, so we'll still roll with it, and you can check out the finished version on all the platforms and everything. So. Presence music and our purpose, man. We making the music from the promised land. Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Higher vision for the ground we stand, yeah, 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 yeah. It's therapeutic in the artist camp. We feeling authentic with the sharpest stanza. It's presence music and our purpose, man. Hey. You know that every 4 years they repeating the same old shit, always making these false promises, never deliver in. I a presence music, always chanting down politician. I remind you that your freedom always a God-given. an Arcturian being this consciousness. I a pilot this your meat suit till it turn crystalline. I know that we're living inside an illusion. I know that there's no such thing as division. Cause reality, nothing more than a hologram from within. Fear of other, really a fear of yourself, and it's time to listen in. Cause the Matrix wants us fighting against ourselves like tribesmen, being a good spokesperson for their favorite statesman. Pretty much the same thing as a sportsman, courtsman. You're rooting for favorite teams, of course, man. With religious fervor, fever, you support them. The dialectical division's not important. Say, it's presence music and our service, man. We making the music from the promised land. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh. A higher vision for the ground we stand, yeah, 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 yeah. It's therapeutic in the artist camp. We feeling authentic with the sharpest stanza. It's presence music and our service, man. The promised land is an internal state. Higher conscious. We feel it from within, you know what I'm saying? It's presence music and our service, man. Hearing of these promised lands, the people lighten up. The magnified electromagnetism fills our cups, overflowing with the highest freedom, truth, and love. Still maintain the frequency even when life gets tough. Heaviness weighs down, but we won't be wearing no frown. Compose some beats and bars to keep the feet here on the ground. Creating with the will of God, we're gonna feel a rebound. And the next thing we know, the inspiration be profound. Remembering who and what we are, we from the stars. And when we got this inner fulfillment, we don't need the fancy cars. Living the life and doing what's right. With laser sight, we be in the guide. Only reason we are here is cause we are sent from the divine. I say, taking time in the nature, writing thoughts on the paper, making love be our labor, and expand for the greater. Cause we are immune to failure with our faith in Creator. And when the waves come, we ride them like we Kelly Slater. Ooh! It's presence music and our service, man. We making the music from the promised land. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh. A higher vision for the ground we stand, yeah, yeah, yeah. Right here on earth, you know. It's therapeutic in the artist camp. We feeling authentic with the sharpest stanza. It's presence, music, and our tourist man.
Just gonna let that one sit and marinate for a second. That's really beautiful. I am really enjoying the music that you put out with Arcturus. It's funny because we were kind of sitting here side chatting and we were like, we know another Arcturus in Sedona, but it's Arcturus Raw, which I
Oh
think,
yeah,
yeah, different than the
yeah.
Arcturus you're making music
I
with,
love
but
him. He's a chiller. Yeah.
Yeah.
we got to see him talk at the Conscious Life Expo, which was, whoo, it was so good. And we have a couple of his like products on our
Yep.
phone and things like that. Thank you for sharing that. I love so much that you kind of came to that realization of like the promised land and this internal experience. And you're right, that's bliss state, heaven, and whatever you want to call it, promised land. Like that is the, I don't want to use the word reward for our listeners, like this path, this truth movement, spiritual movement, shadow work movement, all of it. It is, in my perspective, it is spiritual war, right? And it is this, it can be heavy and challenging and dark at times. And just remembering and holding on to that light that, the promised land and that bliss state and that pure oneness and joy and love and truth and integrity, all of those things, those are on the other side of it. And so we, are always really big advocates here, like hold on to that love, hold on to your sovereignty, hold on to that truth, no matter what's in your field, no matter what anybody says about it, like keep going, keep pulling on that string and know you're not alone. Like we've got Grant and us and all of these beautiful people out here spreading this message of love, spreading this message of truth. And, definitely check out Grant's music. I'd love to give you space to share all the things, plug all the things. Where can listeners connect with you? I know you've got a website and social media and you're on different music platforms. So please plug all of the things so we can help get this music out there, listen to it, share it, do whatever you can, because the more people that hear this, the more people that the sun just like came out right now.
I know.
It's
I
like,
saw
yes,
that. It's
hi.
beautiful. Yeah.
The more we can get this out there, the more it expands, and this type of authentic, embodied, magical art should be exalted and expanded. So please help us do that, and please tell us where people can connect with
Thank you
you.
so much. Yeah, and thank you for doing that. Thanks for, giving me the platform to share these messages. And yeah, again, it's just such a pleasure to speak with like-minded individuals, and I foresee a long friendship between us. So let that continue. May that continue. And to
It
find the
will.
music,
Real
yeah, to
naked,
find,
real recognizes real. Like
yeah,
you're definitely soul family. So you're always welcome to come
likewise.
back on the show too.
Likewise. Thank you. So all my music is available at prezencemusic.com. It's spelled Prezence. So you can think of it as the Zen, Zen in presence. The Zen in presence. Prezence music.com. I'm sure you guys will leave links in the podcast show notes. And yeah, I do all of the production work myself from start to finish, play all the instruments, do the mixing, the mastering, and I also do all the video work myself as well. So I shoot and edit and I fly my drone and all that stuff to put together these, do my best to create really professional, compelling pieces of art, because I know that it's going to be around forever, and that's one of the things for people listening. It's, if you have a voice to share, if you have a gift to share or something that you want to do, just do it, because it's going to be around forever, and the longer that we spend, wasting our time, the longer that we're, limiting the possibility that our medicine could reach the world. And the more that we just show up and do what we're here to do, the more that it just compounds and it builds upon itself, and then it can reach more people. So yeah, I'm grateful for every single person who streams and checks it out, listens to the videos. Please engage with it, like it, share it, subscribe. If you subscribe to me on Spotify, that really helps me out. It helps the algorithms to kind of boost it and start sharing it to people who wouldn't normally hear it. And I'm doing this fully independent. Like there's no one, like I'm doing everything myself, and eventually would love to have a team of people to help me market it and get it out to more people and more listeners. And for now, I just really appreciate anytime someone really resonates with it and they share it with someone else, then I know that it's doing its work, you know, and I leave it up to God to continue, for the music continue doing its work in the world. So thank you so much for having me on today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. This has been such a special episode for so many reasons. It's going to be the first video we post. Like I said, you're actually the last episode and guest of season one, year one. The 1 year
Oh, cool.
anniversary of this show is next week. So you get that. And it's also officially the longest episode. I don't think we've ever gone over like 130, 140. And so, I mean, this, we could sit here and talk to you for 8 hours. This is such a beautiful piece of art. And after Music and Sky, when you posted the thing, I sent it to our community. We have a group of 10 or 11 of us that have formed the community that's eventually going to be on land and build an actual conscious community. And I was like, you guys have to hear this. Like it's so magical. So yes, listeners, connect with Grant. We will put all the things in the show notes. Grant, we love you. Thank you for who you are, the service that you are providing, the art that you are sharing with this world. And I have been dying to say this for like, I don't know, over a month. Thank you for your presence.